Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a 737 pilot and a member of PMDG's tech team. With all the hype around the aircraft and avionics update, unfortunately there is one downside. Asobo-Microsoft have broken the 737's Nav Radios. You are no longer able to tune a frequency. But stay tuned, I'm going to show you a quick and dirty fix how you can still keep your 737 in the air in this video. And the trick to that is RNAV Approaches. The only type of approach that does not require a working Nav radio in the 737 is the RNAV Approach, and in this tutorial I'm going to give you a quick and dirty introduction how to fly one. If you want to learn the full story, then I have linked that video in the description below, so that you can have a look at the full RNAV Approach tutorial. This is just going to be a quick and dirty version of it. We're currently in the holding in Las Vegas and we are set up for a lovely ILS approach. Unfortunately, on the downwind, when we try to tune our frequency, we had to find out that nothing works down here. So, see that? I am unable to change those frequencies. I can only change them in front of the decimal, and I cannot switch the standby frequency active, and that applies to both radios. So we are stuck with RNAV approaches and visual approaches, of course, as the only way of flying approaches in our 737 at the moment, until we get a fix from Asobo for this particular issue. And here is the almighty solution to that problem. It is called area navigation. And you can see the chart for the RNAV RMP approach runway 26 left up here, and let me give you a quick and dirty introduction how to set that one up. We go to the FMS, departures arrival, we arrive in Las Vegas, and we've set that we want to land on runway 26 left, as you can see over here. So let's go ahead and select the RNAV approach for runway 26 left. Here we have it. And we want to take the pre-node transition, which basically provides us the long final. Okay, execute this. Head over to the legs page. Make sure that you have something decent in the flight plan. So in our case, for example, I've built a little downwind over here. We'll just join that up and then we are ready to go. The only one important thing over here is to make sure that your altitude restrictions are actually in correctly. So we can see on the approach we have Shand at 4,800 feet, and then we have Relin at 3,800 feet, and those restrictions are in. That is the very important thing over here, because they are needed for the aircraft to fly the profile correctly. You can disregard that 2.75 degree indication right now. That is not accurate in the PMDG 737. And with that set up, we are basically all good to go to fly the approach. There is one more important information over here, and that is that at the moment, since the radios are stuck in an ILS frequency, we must not press that approach button. You might be receiving an ILS frequency from a nearby airport that actually corresponds to the one frequency that it is stuck in, so 110.5. So don't try to use the IAN approach unless you are familiar with how it works and unless you know how to find your way around it. The good news is we can fly the approach completely in LNAV and VNAV, and the full tutorial to that is linked below. For our purposes, let's start our descent towards the platform altitude, or rather towards our initial altitude, 4,800. We start going down in a level change initially, and then we will turn to final eventually, and I'll show you the quick and dirty way how to fly this. The good news is the 737 can do it all automated, so all you need is going to be LNAV and VNAV as soon as you do have sensible VNAV information in there. So, enough looking at the charts, let's actually get to the practical flying part. Just like with any ILS approach, you can either fly a full procedure or you can just go for any sort of shortcut. The only restriction you have is that you cannot accept a direct to the final approach fix. So in other words, if we look at the approach chart once more, we cannot accept the direct to Relin, which is the final approach point. We can only accept the direct to Shand. And then from Shand to Rallyn we have to have LNAV and VNAV activated. So I'm descending the airplane down right now. Let's get our speed brakes out in order to actually make the airplane descend a little bit faster. And once we are abeam Shand, we can then take a direct to Shand and from there start the approach. Going into a little bit of time acceleration here in order not to waste your time. Heading select to keep going straight. And here we go. So let's put Shand on top on the on the legs page. Shand, here it is. LNAV. Start getting your speed back, and in case you did not use VNAV for the descent, but you use another mode, make sure that you're actually on the profile by the time that you engage VNAV mode. As you're already heading towards an approach waypoint, it is engaging right in VNAV path, and we can see how the speed buck is slowly decreasing to the target speed. From time to time it is helpful to update the direct in case it's needed. Okay, we're back on speed, we're back on profile, let's go flap 1. And with the speed window closed, so speed intervent is not pressed, you will see that as soon as the flaps are entering the 1 stage, the speed bucket is reducing automatically and the airplane can continue the approach like this. One thing that we forgot to set earlier is our minima, so RNAV approaches generally can go down to 250 feet, so just above what we need for or just above the ILS Cat 1 minima. So, in this case, we set the approach minima is 2,450. So let's set that real quick. And that is set. So, make sure that you are actually selecting the MCP altitude down in line with the approach. So, we're passing Shand 4,800, the next is Pelin 3,800. And 2 miles prior to Pelin, we are going to select the MCP altitude down to the minima rounded up to the nearest 100. So 7 miles out. Flaps 5, don't forget to reduce your airspeed. We're now 2 miles from the final approach fix, we are approaching the descent. Altitude is set 2,500, which is the nearest hundreds to the minima rounded up. Checked. And we can see we are nicely established now. The airplane is going to do all the rest for us. If you want to, you can even monitor the vertical situation on the vertical situation display. You have all the information right here. So, FAF 3,800, no flags. And as we're approaching the top of the white bar, or are at least 300 feet below the missed approach altitude, we can select the missed approach altitude of 7,000 feet on the MCP. So missed approach altitude is set, 4 miles out, gear down, flaps 15. Again, we are still in VNAV, so the thing is going to adjust the speed buck automatically. And you can see how the airplane perfectly flies itself down. Flaps 30. Checked. The only thing you cannot do in this configuration is an auto land. So there are 2 things to be aware of. You cannot use the aircraft for an auto land, but you can use it all the way down to 158 feet, provided you have a runway waypoint like this one over here in the legs page. So you can use it all the way down to 158 feet. The other one is to make sure that your QNH is set correctly. You can verify that on the VSD by verifying that the runway actually sits on the terrain shown over here. Okay, we're at the minimums, disconnecting the autopilot, and we are going to land the airplane from here. As you can see, it brought us in perfectly, just as good as the ILS would.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
And don't forget to disconnect the auto throttle like I just did, because it will not automatically reduce the thrust prior to landing. So, manual brakes, auto brakes disarm. Alright, that is it. That is the very simplest version of an RNAV tutorial. So you can see it's fairly easy. Just select the approach, be sure that you don't go direct to the final approach fix, but go to the waypoint before that, and then just use LNAV and VNAV to get you all the way down, and make sure that the aircraft does not actually reach the MCP selected altitude, otherwise it is just going to level off. Once you are at least 300 feet below the missed approach altitude, simply select the missed approach altitude, and then the airplane is going to descend all the way down. The autopilot can be used to 158 feet, but be aware you will lose your flight director guidance on the landing, and the auto throttle is not going to retard the thrust levers automatically. The lowest minima for an RNAV approach is usually 250 feet, in other words, just 50 feet higher than for an ILS Cat 1 approach, so don't be afraid, because we have winter in the northern hemisphere and because there might be bad weather. RNAV approaches are almost as precise as ILS approaches, and in terms of the actual aircraft positioning on the final, they are normally very, very precise. I've never had a case yet where an RNAV approach brought me out in an incorrect position, unless of course the approach was designed as an offset approach. That concludes our very quick look at the alternatives to the ILS and to any other ground navigation based approach which would require a working navigation radio. So I hope that Asobo is going to provide a fix soon. Until then, that is going to be it from my side. I hope you enjoyed this one. Like, comment and subscribe, and if you do want to support the channel you can do so through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to see you flying RNAV approaches in the sooner future.